In typical fashion, it's laid down the garage and I think I've got a cold. I've been down here putting together the engine stand. There it is. And I've realised it's actually too big to go in the garage with the car in here, which is awkward. So now I have a couple of options. I can either leave it on my makeshift engine stand down here. So you can see, lovely bit of carpet, dollies, and it's strapped on so it doesn't fall over, just for manoeuvring it around. Problem being, it's going to make it very difficult to get to the sump and such because, well, it's sat on the sump and such. So I can do pretty much everything else apart from that. And of course I don't want to knock it over because it's not secured. Problem. Or I can reconfigure the garage to try and get the engine stand in here. So the way in and out, that's, well, a mess. But it's about 97 centimetres. This being the engine stand is about 90 centimetres. So there you go, that would just about fit, but it means I'll have to go in and out by the front door. Otherwise, I can't really see another solution. Right, I got the measurements wrong. It's actually 84 centimetres. Car's back in the garage now. Yeah, I think probably the 2 centimetre margin of error or something. Probably a bit more. It's about half the width of the table. Maybe not. However, if I do move everything around back here, yes, it will fit. So I think that's got to be the answer, isn't it, really? Well, it's safe to say that I'm a mess. Well, all over. Complete and utter mess. But the engine is off its little dolly and it's on the stand, and I have been, as you can probably tell, cleaning it up the best part of the afternoon. It was a bit of a pain to get it onto the stand. I should have used an engine crane. I didn't have an engine crane. Brute force and ignorance and the help of a friend basically got it on there. Space to get around it is tight, as you can see, very tight. So I've had the steamer out, been cleaning it down, grinding back bits where the paint is loose, and it's come up relatively well. Stuff's being replaced. I've left the filter and bits and pieces on just to stop the steam from getting into the engine. Timing belt obviously needs to come off to be replaced. I've not been able to get the crank pulley bolt off, perhaps not enough ugger-duggers on my gun. But yeah, that's going to need coming off before I can get to anything else. Water pump and gaskets and such behind. I've got a new water pump, so I'm not worried about that being tidy. The housing, of course, does need cleaning up. But yeah, relatively happy about how that's turning out. I've just blocked off all the various different ports and things just to try and stop stuff from getting in there. Okay, so first coat of paint. Mastered it approximately, but quite happy with that, to be honest. Not so worried in truth about overspray. I've left on the oil filter and the coolers, you can see they're coming off. What my plan was to basically get this thing painted, get a good few coats of enamel on, and then remove everything else that needs to be removed, because also I've still got to do the crank bolt, and then just touch up what I need. But I figure if I've got a good few coats on, then that can only be a good thing. Pretty happy with the finish, to be honest. The paint's gone on really well. I mean, it was prepped in that I'd steamed it, degreased it, steamed it, wire walled it, popped the wire brush with the drill, gone over the whole thing, and washed it off again before painting. But yeah, quite happy with how that's come out. And so the work continues on the engine. What have I been up to? Well, more of the same really. This time the head's been painted, and quite happy with how that's come out really. I've also fitted the breather down here. Now, if you remember, I was considering putting in a rear mount starter gearbox. Now, what I was hoping to do was swap the bell housing with the one that's in the Onion, because the one that's in the Onion has a good gearbox. I thought it was refurbished. It turned out to be new. It's got limited slip diff fitted, and I spent a while wire wheeling it and cleaning it and lacquering and everything else to get it looking good. The problem is that it turns out you have to remove fifth gear from the gearbox to be able to slide the bell housing out, because why make it easy? So swapping them over isn't a straightforward thing. So I'm probably not going to split my gearbox apart. I have to remove the gaskets. Gearboxes are a bit of an art that I haven't mastered, frankly. So I don't really want to get involved with trying to do that. So that means that this section here needs to be cut out to accept the starter motor. So a bit of studying to do before I crack on with that, but for that reason I haven't painted the lower part of the sump. It also needs a bit more cleaning. I realise there's a couple of bits that need doing. So we're going to get the top done as best as we can, then moved on to the sump. There's this cast section just here, and then the bottom part of the sump. In my box of goodies down here, there is a nice new one, the other one. So I'll probably give that a coat of paint actually, just before I fit it, so it looks a bit tidier and it lasts a bit longer. I mean, it looks okay now because it's new, but it won't be too long before it ends up looking like that. Nice. So yeah, bit of work to do. And then once we do the timing belt, water pump can come off, and either that could be painted or polished or what have you. So that to do. I've also made a bit of a start on the cam cover. Now this was absolutely pitted to hell. There are some really thick rub marks in it, as you can probably see, where someone's gone at it, I think with a wire brush or something. I'm not sure beforehand, but either way it doesn't look good. So I've started attacking this with some quite heavy grit sandpaper, which I'll work down to finer paper and finer paper. I think it's going to be a labour of love, and I've also got to figure out how to spray it. I can't remember what these are made of. I think it's magnesium. But presumably that requires some sort of different paint or different technique for fixing it. So yeah, so more to do. And the gearbox dust shield, spacer plate, sandwich plate, whatever you want to call it, needs to be modified so that I can have a front mount starter. So I need to make up my own version of this. I've just given it a clean to begin, and then we're going to go from there. So progress, but not fast progress. A bit more to do. I'd rather take a little bit longer and not rush this. Get a few new bits and pieces, like a new dipstick and such, or dipstick tube at least, and get it all together and looking as smart as I possibly can do before I put the whole thing together. And well, then get ready to go back in the car. I'm trying to keep the car as mobile as long as possible, just because, well, it's a bit of a pain to work on anything without moving it out the garage. And I want to get the engine off of the stand and this stand gone as soon as possible, because it's just a bit too big to be in here. So yeah, I'm just going to try and get that done as quick as I possibly can. Then when that's done, the engine can come out of the onion. The bits and pieces that are on the engine, like the gearbox and the alternator mount, those can come off. They can go onto this, and then the rest of the new bits can go on as well. And we can start building it up, ready to go back in. Clean the engine bay, paint the engine bay, replace the various different components I didn't replace when I was doing the underside, little mini resto that I did, so the various bits of steering rack that need to be replaced. Then get the engine back in, get the car over to Ignition Advantages, I think is where it's going to be going, just to get it all sorted, get Max EC Mini fitted, get the thing running, get it back, get it tracked and aligned, and hooray, away we go. That will hopefully be the end of phase 2. We'll see.